A legal practitioner identified as Amobi Nzelu has appealed to the Independent Investigative Panel on Human Rights Violation by the defunct Special Anti-Robbery Squad (SARS) at the National Human Rights Commission in Abuja to revisit the case of the Apple 6 young traders who were extrajudicially killed by some police officers on the 8th of June 2005 and have the federal government pay their families an outstanding sum of 500,000 naira for burial expenses, which was directed by the then panel led by Justice Olasumbo Goodluck. Nzelu, who is counsel to the complainants Mr. Elvis Ozo and Edwin Menuru on behalf of Ifeanyi Ozo and 5 others now deceased, also informed the panel that the 3 million naira compensation already paid and received by the affected families is grossly inadequate and requested for an upgrade to 200 million naira per family to assuage the pains suffered by the families of the young men whose lives were cut short at their prime.
We felt that this is not adequate enough to compensate for the lives of young people who are between the ages of 22 and 25. That is why we are before this panel. The criminal trial went on for 13 years. At the end of the day, out of the 6 of them that were arraigned before the court, 2 were sentenced to death, 4 were asked to go home. Not that they should not go home and sin no more because they sinned, but they were asked to go home. We are asking the panel, review this money you gave to the families to assuage their sufferings and problems they are going through, seeing the people that were killed were their breadwinners. We asked in that paper that was 200 million of each of the families. But the panel had the discretion to decide which way to go.
In reaction, lead counsel to the Nigerian police James Idachaba argued that the petition was not supposed to be brought before the panel, as the panel is set up to investigate live issues and not matters already decided by competent authorities. He described the petition as an attempt to raise sentiments that lack cause for action.
As far as we are concerned, the matter is very clear. You have seen it, what has happened before the panel, that there is no element of cause of action at all. This is a matter that has since been resolved judicially, and all the processes required has been concluded. It is so frivolous. That's one of the vexatious matters I've ever come across. And let me say this. Some people, for whatever reason, think that this panel is a bonanza, where you now come, or you wake up from the wrong side of the bed, come around, ask for a certain compensation that does not exist at all, either in law or in fact.
The Apple 6 killings was a sad case of the extrajudicial murder of 6 friends in their early and mid-20s who were car parts dealers at the Apple Mechanics Village in Abuja after a face-off with the then Deputy Commissioner of Police DCP Danjuma Ibrahim at a nightclub. The face-off ensued when the lover of one of the 6 friends turned down the love advances of Mr. Ibrahim at the club. Ibrahim was reported to have stormed out of the club in anger and gone to the checkpoint at the end of the street and told officers on duty he had sighted a group of armed robbers in the area. The 6 unsuspecting victims on their way home arrived at the Gimbia checkpoint in a Peugeot 406 car, and Mr. Ibrahim allegedly had the car blocked and ordered the officers to shoot the occupants after an argument. The 4 of them, unarmed, died at the spot in the blaze of gunfire. The 2 who survived the initial onslaught were finished off on June 8, 2005 by 2 police officers who claimed they attempted to escape from custody. The news of the incident shook the country at the time, drawing large public outrage. Consequently, a riot ensued. The police reportedly hurriedly buried them at the back of their station to cover up their tracks, but a panel of inquiry ordered they be exhumed months later to run an autopsy. The autopsy found that they were shot at close range, contrary to police claim that they were armed robbers. The Judicial Panel of Inquiry found the police account that the victims were armed robbers to be false and recommended Mr. Ibrahim and his men for trial. 2 of the men were sentenced to death by hanging and the 4 others allowed to go home. Mr. Ibrahim was over time reinstated into the force with a double promotion, and after more than a decade of court proceedings, the Apple 6 were pronounced innocent. The panel yesterday reserved the 15th of April 2021 for a conference to look at documents to be provided by the counsel to the complainant to enable it make a decision on the petition on the increment on compensation to the families of the victims.